Here we are again, Duber and Justin Binkowski. It is episode 4 of D9 Football Focus. And today we're going to kind of even it up between the KSAC and AML. We're going to have Central Clarion, Brookville, Smethport, and finish it off with Cameron County. And of course, I have to welcome in my wonderful co-host, Justin Binkowski. Well, it's a dreary Monday, buddy, but everybody's getting fired up for Friday night. How you doing?
I'm doing great, man. And matter of fact, when I went outside to try to take care of my swimming pool today, and I thought, what the hell am I wasting my time for? If I'm sitting by a football field, this is weather that these guys are dreaming of, especially the players. If I'm a coach, I'm probably in a hoodie and sweatpants right now because I can't. Probably muck boots because I can't stand being cold. But you are hitting the nail on the head with the perspective of this is football weather.
Hey, I gotta add, now on that, since it is a little muddy out there, what was that like at practice? I mean, was it more of a pain in the butt, or could it be fun sometimes? But I'm sure when the kids go home and mom's got to wash things, maybe not.
They don't smell any better, that's for sure. But that's a great point of view. And I actually had this conversation with my wife earlier about, like, our daughter has soccer practice. She's like, I wonder if they're going to cancel. In some years, man, I won't. Our program has killed practice on a pouring down rain day. And in other years, we've went out and practiced. There's 6 in one, half dozen in the other. You got to get ready for wet footballs. You have to be prepared to play in the rain. But I thought to myself, you know what? When you jump on that loose ball on the ground, it's never gonna go the same way twice.
Right.
So,
right.
For those parents out there that are thinking, darn you, coach, I can't believe you made me deal with this. Towards the end of my coaching career so far, I've been leaning towards, we're going to go in a gym, mental reps on the whiteboard. And that's where it's important for people to understand what these coaches are doing on the whiteboard is they're teaching kids. They're not just out on the field running around reliving their glory days. So these guys that I talked to that we're going to talk about here in episode 4, are very tactician, detail, very old school, with a lot of energy. So let's get into it.
Yeah, let's get into it with Central Clarion, a team that joined you in the state championship run in 2024. A good buddy of yours, Dave Eggleton, down there. Give me what's going on down at Central Clarion, my friend.
Excitement, my man. Talked to Davey the other day. He's got a cake job now that he's in administration, but he's got a phenomenal setup with his co-ops in the schools that he's co-oping with. And he talks about having coaches in buildings that he's got kids coming from. But before we even go any further, and I know we talked about this years ago about when we were in the state title game at Port Allegheny and stuff, but I just want to remind people this is the same guy, same coaches, Coach Hinman and Coach Ferguson and all those guys, and Dave Lauder and everybody down there. Like, they were the same people that lined our little walkway for our Class A because they were 2A and their title game was the next day. Yeah. So when all this time we talk about relationships when we talk about community service, when we talk about taking care of District 9, let's not forget to remind people that Davey and his coaches organized, their team for us to walk through on our way to the field pregame on the way to District 9.
Yeah,
on the way to the state title game.
Yeah, again, those are just awesome things where we all come together. That's a wonderful time of the year. Right now, we're foes, but you know how it goes. Well, again, with Clarion Central, they could have some battles there in 2A.
So he talks about, he made no bones about it that, and as we will continue to discuss, health in depth and things of that nature. They want to stay healthy throughout, but he couldn't speak highly enough of their guys in their off season. Couldn't speak highly enough for how, some of his current guys were able to get new guys out for the team, which we'll talk about when we get into our dudes conversation. But when you got people that are willing to go and play for a program such as Central Clarion and the success that they've had, down in I don't even know what you want to call it. We'll call it Shippensville, Clarion, Strattonville. All those they are hungry after what happened in 2025.
Sure.
Davey made no mistake about that. That they're coming up short in the district playoffs. is something that they are going to really, not hesitate to remind their kids of.
Yeah.
They're chasing a D9 title.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, Justin, where again, you take that learning experience to the next season, and we've stressed that a lot. And again, you've lost some of that senior leadership, but the kids have been there. So again, that crew that's coming up's got to be just chomping at the bit.
He talked about the team bonding too, big time. And for parents of booster clubs, is this worthwhile money? He talks about pregame meals, and he talks about team camps, and that stuff matters, man, because when you have, the studs that we'll talk about for every one of these schools, but when you have, offensive guard knowing behind him that he has fullback, and fullback knows in front of him that he has offensive tackle, and everybody knows they're busting their butt for each other, and that stuff gets built in those moments. So again, when your parents are thinking, if your parents out there are listening, geez, I wonder what little Johnny or Jack's doing, Dave Eggleton and his staff, I've got to know him outside of football. We've gone to clinics together. We've really, just chilled out and talked ball. They want boys to become men, and all while they're chasing a district title, man. They're better humans for being a part of that program. Yeah. Can't say enough about that.
Yeah, and it's cool for them when they get to play at Clarion University, then go into the friendly confines at Weiser Field. I had the opportunity to announce with Larry at the Varischetti game along with J.J. Michaels, and he's still part of that history and all, and I think that kind of just gives these coaches a little confidence too, knowing that Larry can, he's kind of watching over you a little.
Oh, and I think that's a fact. I think Larry has a strong grip over that program is, still. And I, talking to Coach Louder at a clinic a couple years ago, Dave Louder, Central Clarion's DC, he, looking for film from a district playoff game from 30 years ago, and the connections that he played for Coach Weiser and the stories he's been able to tell. And, when I see Coach Weiser and I hear when he wished us well in our program in the last handful of years, we go back to the AML studs we talked about the other night with Coach Simcoe and Coach Haskins and Coach Bodemer and Coach Carter and all those guys. So if we want to go to the KSAC, I think it all starts with Coach Weiser and all the guys that are associated with it. But Central Clarion, real humans, pretty damn good football coaches, and they got some talent coming back that we'll get to down the road.
All right, very, very cool. Let's stick down that way with the Brookville Raiders. What's your feeling?
I mean, anybody that knows Billy Morrison, second or third year head coach down at Brookville, the most real human. He's never going to beat around the bush. His energy is second to none. He's a little tinier now. His big burly self is trying to take care of his health, and we've talked about kids and family, and he's chasing little kids around. But Bill is somebody that over the last couple of years that we played him the last 2 years. What a beautiful facility down there. Yeah. But he has taken some things on the chin a little bit. He's really hit him in the heart. He's taken things personal. And one thing I can tell you about Bill Morrison, and I got to meet his college roommate when I coached in the Big 33 game. And just, again, dude, talk about relationships, buddy. So that type of thing. And Billy is the same from, I'm sure, the time he wakes up till the time he goes to bed. He's intense. He cares for people. But he's made some changes down there. He's taken really much higher sense of accountability for maybe the shortcomings that they've had down there. And one of the biggest things Billy talked about is let's get off the bus. We're ready to roll.
Yeah.
We can't take our time. We can't ease into it. He's made no bones about it. I'm not breaking anything out of the Pandora's box here, but they made the transition to a wing T offense.
Oh boy.
They want to take advantage of angles up front. For those of you out there that are what's wing T, what's spread, we'll get into it right now is, with Billy's staff, he's going to have his offensive line are going to be instructing these guys on very tight splits. You're going to have people going 17 different directions. And it really forces the defense to read their keys. It really forces the defense to be honest to, if you're a middle linebacker, you're reading center through guards. If you're that safety, you got to make sure you know when to get down in the box and pass coverage and all those things I can't wait to talk about with you, man. But Billy wants to make sure that they play Brookville football. He said the last couple of years they felt like they were playing the other team's tempo and style of ball. So, it's on him. And I quote, he has made no mistake about it. I have this written right in my notes. Coach says it's on him, and he's done what he thinks he can do, and the kids have done what he thinks they can do up till late August. And it's really hard not to root for Bill Morrison.
Yeah, that again, there's that incentive, and when you make those changes, there can be some frustration. But as you said when we were talking about Ridgeway, which, by the way, people get on me for saying Ridgeway, but I'm a Wilcox guy. But anyways, that's the thing where it's so frustrating on defense. So that's going to be fun to watch materialize, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, because he sticks to his guns, man, I would call him stubborn, but I would also call him very, very knowledgeable and prideful that, it's not his way or the highway. Bill's never been like that since I've known him. It's just a matter of, this is what we've studied. This is what we're going to buy into. Wins and losses don't matter right now for where he's at with the program. He wants to make sure that they play a physical brand. And as Billy said, when you wake up Saturday morning, or in some cases Sunday morning, he wants the other team to know that, they played Brookville Blue Raiders, and they want to be able to do their own thing. Everything else will kind of play itself out. But coaches and players both, Billy, from the top down, from the youngest freshman up to the head coach, and Billy he's going to require everybody to bring it, and looking forward to seeing Brookville.
That's cool. Let's go to the county seat in McKean County, and Smethport, Ryan Yingling, who had a chance to coach the Big 30 game and be victorious. What's the vibe in Hubbardville?
I'm telling you, they got some running backs, man. Coach Yingling made no mistake about it that, they were very young a year ago. And they had some success. They lost arguably one of the best running backs in District 9, especially in the northern half, in Jonah Gano.
Yeah.
But, Coach talked about staying healthy, of course, as always. But before we get into that, man, I want to talk about, and I mentioned this, I think, in episode 1 or 2, one of those out there. But Coach Yingling talked about this very vividly, and he asked about the pressure that we felt as Port Allegheny, and he talked very vividly, same age as my brother, class of 96. They played in a Big 30 game together. So if you think about that, in those days, you got 93, 94, 95 fall, right?
Yeah.
So if you're in a class of 96, Coach Yingling became a sophomore right after Smethport had been to the state title game.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So he just talked about the history and how pressure-packed it was, and how, yes, it's awesome to be a part of it, but the pressure that they felt, being always ready for games, and the pressure that they felt performing in games, and the pressure they felt going into film the next week with, the great Coach Carl DeFilippi, and all that stuff, and when Coach Yingling talked about that, it just made you, you didn't want to be the class. And I talked to Coach Simcoe about this too. You don't ever want to be the class that lets something special go.
Mm-hmm.
So Coach Yingling talked so much, and I hate to keep going to this point, but Coach Yingling talks so much about trying to instill the history and teach these kids, because they aren't born yet. Maybe their uncles or dads played at the tail end, whatever. But Coach Yingling talked, or Ying as they call him over there, they talked about, instructing and teaching and teaching these kids what they are a part of. And I mentioned with the Gators, the 6 letters, and all these guys have their mantras and their sayings, but, the Hubs, those guys, roll Hubs roll, and all the sayings that they have. Coach Yingling is making sure that his players understand when they put on that white orange jersey, I don't think they wear them anymore. I didn't bust his butt about this, but those horrendous high socks, the stripes around the top, but for real, I really appreciate how he's doing a great job. And I've done that myself in Port Allegheny, and you name drop some people. And again, it goes back to the District 9 culture that not everybody has, dude, in that somebody came before you.
Yeah.
The reason why we're talking about the teams we're talking about is the people that came before you.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been blessed with Johnsonburg alumni and Port Allegheny alumni personally. And then you get into Smethport and talking to Blaine about Red Bank Valley's success, and talking about, Mark and what Ridgeway's done before him. You mentioned Benny Benizzuti.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I apologize for rambling, but we are blessed to be around that. So going back to Smethport, I applaud Coach Yingling I really applaud what he's doing to try to promote what the Hubs are. Maybe they've hit a couple bumps in the road, but what they're all about.
Yeah.
So he talked mostly about that.
And that's just wonderful to hear, because there was just, again, this is 30-something years ago, people, and being over at that stadium on a Friday night and some of the things that Barry and I got to do, and, we kind of became, for lack of a better term, we became Hubbers, and that was just a beautiful thing, and that is so cool just to hear that they're grasping that. And Ryan's just one of those guys. He's got that look that, yep, we're going to do this, boys, and they have fun over there too. And again, as we said, that's an important part of this. If it's not fun, it can get tough.
Yeah, and he talked about, continuing to promote sportsmanship. You want to be, I don't care if you pick the other guy up, but most importantly, you're going to play through the whistle, and then you're going to go line up and do it again. Continuing to make sure that you're, all the above. You want to win, but understanding it's more than that. You want to make sure you're going and getting better. You're not making the same mistakes, which I've talked to these coaches about, and we've always stressed our guys, don't make the same mistakes.
Yeah.
If I can say it once, I've said it 1,000 times to our guys, dude. Like, the coaches have no problem if you make 200 different mistakes. Just don't make mistake 200 times.
Yeah.
So, Coach talked about, they're very big up front. They're, 27 years, that old man of him. Coach Engling's been at it to some degree for 27 years. Very, very high on his running backs. And I watched them scrimmage Coudersport and Kawaneski Valley on Saturday. I think they're going to make some noise in Region 4. And again, Coach Ryan Yingling is doing things the right way. He is, for anybody out there listening, it's a Hub at heart. He is doing everything in his power to make people to understand they want to play physical. They want to do their own thing, their way. But they also want to make sure these kids know what used to happen in Smethport in, the late 80s, 90s. Coach talked about didn't lose a single regular season game in his career. So he doesn't judge it by that. He just judges it by playing with that same mentality that the Hubs bring.
Yeah, and they got the people over there that, as we know, they'll support that team, and that's the cool thing. Let's go to a gentleman who I had a chance to meet him the first time and chat with him when he coached a Big 30 game, and then this year he did the Verachetty game. We're talking about Ryan Neiman down at Cameron County. I think he's a little excited too, isn't he?
Well, he talks about the difference. Ryan isn't a big guy of words. I feel like Ryan's kind of a doer.
Yeah.
He just shows up, has his kids prepared. He was part of some really good teams as a player, but he said it was a different offseason, different summer. Not necessarily from a negative standpoint, just different in that, a lot of fresh faces. I believe he told me 15 freshmen. So, they got to grow up fast.
Yeah.
A couple teams that I've talked to have said that. But I will say, he's wanting to get guys as many live reps as he can. But as we all know in small town football, live reps mean potential injuries. So, he's doing a pretty good job, I think, of just trying to preach that, get what you can and maximize your rep. But at the end of the day, we have to make sure we have as many guys as we can on a Friday night. But, I just think one thing that separates this program, and Cameron County used to be, we talked about Johnsonburg and Port Allegheny playing in Cameron County in 1986 in the first, AML game, right? So Emporium, Cameron County, I've always equated it to be the same.
Sure.
Very much different. The community's different. Used to have Sylvania and GKN. They all moved away.
Yeah.
But one thing that I think, Ryan, and we talked about this, their resiliency in Cameron County, the resiliency in that school district and that community. And I've been there. I've been caught in years past when we played on Saturdays. We'd go watch a game on Friday. Myself and some assistants, or when I was an assistant, we'd be caught in that homecoming parade. And there's some crazy stuff going on I'm not going to talk about, but there's some crazy stuff going on. And it's all just, Cameron County Red Raider pride. They're very resilient no matter what happens, whether it's a struggle athletically, struggle economically, struggle whatever.
Yeah.
And Ryan really, really, really put a lot of onus on that. And just the idea of I just like that he wants to be successful on the field. He wants to be successful off the field. Yeah. And I want to, before we stop talking about Cameron County, I want to make sure I would be an idiot if I didn't mention this, that his number one objective was to have no academic ineligibilities. Wow. And for those of you listening, meaning, all your players are passing all their classes, and they do, Coach Ryan Nyman has been very open about the fact of that is important to him. That's important to the fact of, we're all student athletes, right? As players. And I tell you what, man, I played against Coach for a number of years now, probably close to a decade, coached against him, but getting to do this interview with him was one of those, man, really gratifying things of, we've had a lot of success against them. They're going to get their success against us. But at the end of the day, Ryan is a really good dude, and he's the right man for Cameron County football. And tonight was special, man, because these four guys are all in on their schools, and it shows. And coupled with the guys we talked about in the previous episodes, dude, really it just focuses on, and I have this written down, togetherness in the fact of they're all, in some cases, co-ops, in some cases bringing multiple schools, but there's a sense of togetherness because it leaves in the winter and spring. Yeah. There's that pride, that pride of wearing that jersey, which we've talked about, man. And I'm exuding the optimism every coach has. Like, listen, tomorrow and Wednesday, for those of you out there listening, Tuesday and Wednesday are the number 1 and 2 days for these coaches and these players. This is where they're going to be full pads, especially helmets and shoulder pads. And this is where they're going to run through their main bread and butter plays. This is when they might, thud up a little bit, pop some pads a little bit, make sure guys know that it's a physical sport. But these next 2 days are really important. And people forget that a lot of these kids started school today. They'll start school tomorrow. They'll start school. We start in Port Wednesday. So we've always made it a point that the first day of practice has to be adjusted because the kids are mentally burnt out. Yeah, so sure. That's another thing I want people to remember, is the amount of psychology that goes into coaching these guys. These coaches plan so well. Talking to all of them, man, there's no T not crossed and no I not dotted right now. And that takes preparation, and that's what exudes that pride and energy, man. So really just another group of coaches, man, that here we go, dude. We're only 4 days away, man. Week 1.
That's why I love talking to you, because you can offer those insights where a coach, sometimes they don't want to talk about themselves. So getting, chatting with you and us relay, this is just, I'm having the time of my life, buddy. So, damn, I appreciate you out there doing what you're doing for me as well.
Oh man, it's just fun getting these guys, because, and I talk to, we've talked about this in previous episodes. There's some coaches that don't really want to talk pregame, but, sure. I talked to some coaches this morning in interviews we'll do down the road. I told them 10 minutes and it was 45 minutes. Yeah, it was 50 minutes. And it was, hey, I'm not going to tell you anything about this. And next thing you know, they've told me 10 things. They told me they weren't going to tell me one thing for. So, I think truly, dude, and I said this the other night, one of our episodes, man, what you've done for District 9, what you've done for our, athletics, especially football, among other sports, people want to make sure that they, get the opportunity to go through you. And I'm blessed to be able to go along with you. So if we keep spreading a good word, man, then people are going to want to share some things with us.
Well, that's cool, because we're going to be taking a little break, and then you and I will be taping episode 5, and we're going to do kind of some big boys, north and south. We're going to go with Otto Eldred, Brockway. We're also going to have Bradford and Punxsutawney. So get yourselves fired up for that episode, folks. And Justin, it's just a pleasure, dude.
Hey, it's been a blast. It's always nothing but love for District 9.
And I have to say, remember, folks, be kind and do your best to make a difference.